you get to be somebody else. And then you get to go back into yourself. I love myself. I like how my brain works. I like coming back to her, but there's such a release when you get to kind of put that person to the side and put on somebody else's shoes, literally.
Laurie Hernandez, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you are fresh off the Paris Olympics, not in competition, but on the broadcast team. You did a dynamite job. I know that that's not easy. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to the broadcast booth?
Yeah, thank you so much for the compliment. It definitely was a shift in my gymnastics journey from being so used to physically preparing for a job, whereas this time around I feel really grateful that we were able to do so many either, mock commentary runs or even go to some live gymnastics competitions, and me and my co-commentator, Rich Lerner, would go and we'd call the meets live. They just wouldn't get aired anywhere. But we were able to record those and watch them over later on to see if there were any notes or any things that we can kind of tweak and make better, or sometimes it's looking for clarity, sometimes it's figuring out, okay, we've got 10 seconds to describe everything that just happened. How do we do that to reach as many people as possible and keep it clear and concise, but also show compassion? There was a lot. It felt like I was juggling a lot, but I had such a blast doing it, and I'm so glad that it was received so well. I do have a lot of love and passion for the sport, and I feel a lot of sympathy for the athletes that are out there, especially knowing the nerves and whatnot. So getting to share that with a bunch of people on the internet has been great.
One thing I learned from your commentary in Paris was the deep connections and friendships built between gymnasts from different countries. Because I go into it thinking these gymnasts must be bitter rivals, but you see situations like Simone and Jordan bowing to Brazil's Rebecca Andrade. So talk a little bit about international gymnastics and that camaraderie.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people tend to find a lot of joy in perceiving sports as a bit of reality TV, which is kind of funny. And while, our sport can be really serious and, oftentimes a little cheeky, I wouldn't say petty, no, but, there's definitely a little spice in there. Most of the time, and you can see that especially through what you just recalled, like Simone and Jordan bowing to Rebecca Andrade from Brazil. A lot of these gymnasts that the women are going and competing against, from Team USA out to everyone else, this is not the first time that they're competing against one another. This is years in the making. This is prior world championships. I had competed with Flavia and them in 2016, and it's okay, it's 2024, it's Paris, and we're still seeing a lot of these, Team Brazil coming back out there. There's a handful of veterans, Ellie Black from Canada, and it's all of these familiar faces. At some point, you start to befriend all of them and realize that they're all just trying their best, and everyone's rooting for each other, and it very much so is, may the best woman win out there.
Yeah, it's refreshing. I'd love to see that. And just to cap off your broadcasting work, my personal favorite moment from you was when you tossed in the "and they were roommates."
I knew that was going to come up.
You were roommates. Did you know even before that she was going to be special?
And they were roommates. Yeah, no, Simone,
Oh my God, they were roommates.
You said it in response when discussing you and Simone rooming together in Rio, but you did this all Olympics. You pulled in the younger generations with some quips. The TikTok game was strong. So I'm wondering, did you do this intentionally, or were you no, this is me, I'm going to do what I do and just be myself, and that's kind of how all of that flowed out?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't, not necessarily intentional. I think that's just my personality. It's a very Gen Z personality of just parroting things that I've heard before on the internet. I noticed this especially during qualifications, the first competition that we were able to go and commentate. And it started at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and it finished around 11 p.m., and the entire thing was live. It was 5 subdivisions that we had covered. And I'd say, by hour 6, I think whatever professional persona that I tried to put on, or whatever box I had tried to kind of put myself in so that way people would take me seriously, that sucker went right out the window. At some point, it was wow, you know what? She's upside down. That's for sure. She's doing something, and I think I'm really glad that that got received well, and just being able to crack some jokes, but also to be able to pull the tension taut when it needs to be, and to hold that suspense, and to, hold my breath with the audience. It's not me telling all the viewers that this is a tense moment. I'm feeling this with you, and it's as if we're all on the couch watching this thing together. So I'm glad that that got received really well, but it definitely wasn't intentional. I think exhaustion was a gift, and from then on, it gave me a lot of permission to just be myself on air, and I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, so you mentioned tension. Can I tell you what the most anxiety-inducing skill is to watch the gymnasts do?
Please.
Or rather, can you guess what I'm gonna say?
I guess anything on beam.
Okay, well, I'm going to explain it in my words, and you're going to do the translation that you're so good at doing.
Okay.
And you'll tell me what it's actually called, and then you can tell me how hard it is compared to other moves and if I'm overreacting. But it's the move when you're on the ball of your foot, just one foot, you're crouched down, and then you spin, but like sometimes it's more than one spin. It's no flips, it's no twists, it's nothing aerial. That's easily the time that I'm like white knuckling the couch during the Olympics.
That's really funny. It's okay, so it's called a wolf turn or a Humphrey. It has a few names depending on how many turns are being done. But it's most commonly known as a wolf turn, and it's kind of when you're in like a sideways pistol squat and you hook a foot around and start turning on the one leg. It looks very ice skater like. This is not a skill that I had ever tried to do on beam. I don't want to do it on beam. It personally was not my favorite. I know I used to be able to do like double and triple wolf turns before I got knee surgery when I was 14, and then after that point it just got really uncomfortable for me. That was kind of the only turn I was able to do, so the fact that I couldn't do it was really disappointing. But it's definitely, each skill has its own challenges, and certain skills are easier for some gymnasts, and that same skill could be like the bane of another gymnast's existence. So I'm sure that's the case for this one as well, but doing anything sideways on beam, you're only using your peripherals. There's not a lot of head turning unless you're able to spot, but even turning your head when you're only on 4 inches of equipment, sometimes that can lean you the wrong way. So a lot of times that's why, especially on beam, we're not seeing a lot of gymnast spot necessarily, because it can get a little tricky. But yeah, no, it's hard. That's valid.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for validating my feelings, and I'm glad I never had to watch you do it because I would have been terrified for you. I don't think I could have handled it personally. Just a quick pivot away from gymnastics really quick. Did you catch any other events while you were out there in Paris? Anything you particularly loved?
I was not able to catch other events. It was definitely tough trying to get outside of commentary work. Technically, it's still like, an umbrella term under gymnastics, but I was able to commentate trampoline, which was so exciting. I had never done that before. My partner's a trampolinist, and went to the games for it, so it's like I was just trying to soak up as much knowledge as possible. But it was really exciting to call this sport and to learn the rules and to just recognize the stakes and the tensions of all of it, because it's like, all right, we've got our 4 events, and there's vault, bars, beam, floor, and if there's a mistake that happens mid-routine, typically, on events that aren't vault is basically like one skill, but it's like if you fall mid-routine, then you get back up and you finish the routine, and you might be able to make it up on other events, especially if there's mistakes happening from other athletes. It's, it definitely is a juggle that's happening. In trampoline, if there's a mistake, the routine is over, and there's 10 consecutive skills, and that's it. And the higher you go, the more points you get. So a lot of strategy is involved, and it was really fun to be able to watch that and to commentate it and to just be in awe of sports that don't often get recognized as much.
I love that. I did catch a little bit of it in the Olympics this year, but now I have to make a point for 2028 to make sure I'm locked in. Now I want to talk about the past a little bit. Can you even believe it's been 8 years since Rio?
No, that's insane.
So
It feels like another life.
I imagine, and I'm sure you've been asked a version of this, like what was it like performing at the Olympics? But now that you've had 8 years to reflect, Has there been any emotions or thoughts on that experience that have become stronger or more clear to you the further removed that you become?
Ooh, not necessarily. I think, if anything, there's a lot of reflection on the training period, just because that's 15 years of my formative years. Whereas the Olympics, when, we're watching other athletes compete, this is within a 3-week time period, and it's a couple of hours that are being given to watch the sport, essentially. But to us, it's like when we're out there, that is a blip of time compared to all the other competitions and all the training that goes into it prior to actually getting there. So a lot of times there's reflection on that, and just I did not have, I know no athlete really does, but like I didn't have a normal or a typical life, being homeschooled and going to the Olympics at 16 before getting my driver's license or before being a junior in high school. Like, that's such a strange thing that is not super common. And I think there was so much navigating happening. There was so much, like, this is going to sound crazy, but I'm currently taking a young adult, like, novel writing class at NYU currently. And it is so interesting to hop into the headspace of being a teenager. And I think your teenage years, all of life really is about this, but especially in your teenage years, it's just discovering who you are, what you like, what you don't like, being able to make big choices, being able to make mistakes. And I feel like so much of that was kind of shoved into a little box in the corner, and all my life was focused on gymnastics. And I feel like now I'm almost in my teenage years in terms of like discovery and figuring out who I am as a person. It's definitely been a lot of reflection in that sense, but overall, like, I wouldn't necessarily change anything, especially knowing how young I was and how excited I was to be there. And the team was so kind to me and welcomed me with open arms, and everyone had so much experience out there. And anytime I was nervous about something that was going on, they'd be like, okay, you don't have to be nervous, like, here's what's going to happen, and they'd walk me through it. So yeah.
I love that. And so you did do some reflection there. I feel like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about what I was doing in 2016, and I was a totally different person. And the way you put it in perspective, the fact that you had the nation and the world watching and you didn't even have a driver's license is quite crazy. You mentioned you're in New York now, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about NYU. But first, in New York, where do you keep your medals? Do you have them with you?
Oh, my medals are actually, they're not in New York with me. They're with my parents, and they're in a safe.
Very
Those
smart.
babies are locked and loaded.
But maybe more importantly, where do you keep the Len Goodman mirror ball trophy?
Oh my goodness. So when I had first actually gotten the mirror ball trophy, right now it's in my parents' basement, which sounds so wild. There's like a little shelf full of trophies and picture frames from like all me and my siblings, everything that we've done, little like medals that we've gotten in the past. Like, my brother ran track growing up, my sister did karate, my parents did a lot of sports, so it's like everybody's little things on there. And then there's just like a mirror ball trophy chilling on the top shelf, which is so strange. But when I had first gotten it, my mom put it in the middle of the living room, which was so wild, because then people
As
would
she
come inside.
should.
But like, people would come inside and be like, yeah, the Hernandez household, yada yada, and then look to the right and there's this massive disco ball on like a bunch of metal. It's so heavy, it's engraved, like it's just the most wild thing. But it's so sweet to look back on that and think of how proud my parents have always been of me, but especially during those moments where, the pressure's on and it's time to show up. And I feel like that's something I'm really proud of in myself. I do feel like someone who gets to, like, I'm able to show up when it counts, and it's something that I think my parents also value in themselves, and they kind of instilled that in me and my siblings. And my mom sticking that trophy in the middle of the living room is her being like, that's my kid.
There you go. So do you have any advice for Steven Nedorozic, Pommel Horse King, in his pursuit of the Dances with the Stars trophy?
Oh my gosh, he doesn't need my advice. He's got the best of the best out there cheering him on. All I will say, though, is just have fun. It flies by so incredibly fast. I mean, I remember like being on there, being 16, doing gymnastics for 11 years, and then only doing the show for 11 weeks. And when you're in it, it feels, in the most fun way possible, so tedious because you're just learning things over and over again. But then you blink and the moment's over, and it's something that I look back on with such fondness. So just enjoy the ride, have a blast, and keep in touch with your friends out there that you make.
I love that you just mentioned your mom and how proud she is of you. It is, of course, Hispanic Heritage Month. What are some of your favorite ways to celebrate with your family and your culture during this time, or perhaps just year-round?
Yeah, I think it's especially year-round. The thing that I note the most, or when I feel most connected to, like, my heritage and, like, Puerto Rican culture, especially during the holidays, just because there's so many different traditions that happen that I grew up with. Most of it revolves around food, which is essentially every culture's staple. But being able to have like my mom's homemade cooking, especially for like Thanksgiving or for Christmas, that always feels like, oh yeah, no, we're Hispanic. Like that solidifies it. But I think year round it'd be kind of the same practice of enjoying gratitude, reflecting on the culture, like being connected with like my grandma and her story of going from Puerto Rico into New York on a boat at such a young age, and then like starting her family there, and my parents, you know, then being born in New York, coming to Jersey, and just kind of all of it has to do with setting the next person up for success. And there's so much sacrifice, and I think a big part of Hispanic Heritage Month is recognizing the sacrifice and recognizing the trials and the triumphs that come with being Latina and with being connected to such a culture that is vibrant and joyful and has to do with so much love, so much familial love. I think that's huge.
And you were so kind to provide some of your favorite movie and TV shows that are either centered around or feature Hispanic culture or characters. So give us a little homework. What should we be watching from your list during this month?
Okay, I will say, I added La Casa de Papel on there, which is just Money Heist on Netflix. It's a little, there's a lot of action, there's a little bit of gore, but, you know.
That's okay. You're speaking in my language.
Okay, cool. This, if you haven't seen it yet, basically, there's this guy, and he's the professor. He's just known to everyone as the professor, and the professor constructs these intricate, vivid plans on how to rob, like, the world's most secure bank. Oh, the tension is so good. It's so good, and it's all, I'm not sure where it was filmed, but I know it's, like, Spain and, like, Spaniard kind of infused, and that is just, oh my God, it's so good.
What a pitch. What a pitch. I mean, the showrunners should hire you to do some marketing for them. Okay, that was the easiest sell, for sure. We'll add to my watch list. Let's talk about NYU. You're studying drama. Pardon me, because I'm not sure about this. Is it true that when you audition for drama school, you need to prepare a monologue or a speech? Okay, did you do that? And what did you choose?
Oh, great question. I don't remember exactly what I chose. I think you have to do a dramatic monologue and a comedic monologue. And then if you're auditioning for musical theater, you have to have a song prep. So thankfully, I didn't have to do that. But yeah, no, it's really intense. You sit in this like Zoom waiting room, and you just sit there, and they're like, from this time to this time, we're gonna host a thing, and you have to be on call. And when, like, you're sitting there for 2 hours, and then all of a sudden someone's face pops up, and it's like, okay, time to audition, and it's really jarring. I think I did a monologue from a play called Incendiary by Adam Simkowitz. I should do my research on that, but I'm like 90% sure that that's what I did, and I loved that play. It was juicy. To this day, I'm still like, yeah, no, that was a good play.
Well, so believe it or not, Laurie, you're talking to an actor. And by actor, I mean, I took one acting class in college.
Amazing.
I was not a theater major.
That's so fun.
I thought it was going to be a slam dunk, easy 4 credits to like finish up my senior year. Mm-hmm. I am not a woman of the arts. It was so hard. It was so awkward. I was just sweating every day. So you tell me why you love it.
Like what?
Well, because so I was in a class full of people like you that wanted to make a career of it. And I was just like, I need 4 more credits to graduate. Let me take an acting class. So I also don't want to let people down, kind of like you said. I wanted to do my best, but I was just not up to the level of the rest of my classmates. So it just was extra stress. I knew I was bad. I was letting them down. So I need you to tell me why you love it and why this is where you landed and this is your next journey.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think something really special about acting, and this is, I noticed like a really sharp contrast to broadcasting commentary or doing a keynote speech. I do that a lot, especially in colleges, which is, I find a lot of joy in those. I love being on stage. I love it. They just throw me on there for an hour with a little handheld microphone, and I just tuck my little butt off, and we're laughing and we're crying, and we get to do Q&As and things like that, and that definitely can be really stressful because it's just me on stage. But at the same time, there is a sense of like, oh, okay, I know that like there's a designated place and time that I know attention is going to be on me. How do I navigate this space as myself and keep people interested and excited and blah, 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 blah. It's kind of similar, but also very different with acting, where it's like, I love being on stage, and a lot of that stage fright shifts into something completely different because I'm not nervous of going out there and being myself. If anything, that's the most relieving part, is that when I'm up there, you're not looking at me. Any sort of acting correction or critique or whatever it is, it's on behavior, but it's never on me. Whereas when I get notes for doing keynotes, there's a little part of like my heart chips away a little bit because I'm like, oh no, that's a choice that I made about myself. But with acting, there's that layer, I think, or at least it feels like a layer of space to me, where you get to just like put on somebody's way of thinking and put on somebody's experience. But in doing that, like, you have to completely take all your own stuff and shove it to the side, and you take what works and you leave what doesn't. But it's like there's this weird sense of you get to be somebody else, and then you get to go back into yourself. I love myself. I like how my brain works. I like coming back to her, but there's such a release when you get to kind of put that person to the side and put on somebody else's shoes, literally. And run a scene, and it's, I don't know, I think there's a lot of sparks in that. My creative brain just kind of explodes a little bit. I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
It sure does. You seem like just you're born to perform in a lot of different ways. So let's manifest something. Let's look into a crystal ball.
Ooh.
If you can book your dream role, what would it be?
Oh, if I could book my dream role, it would be, it's kind of in this same vein of like action rom-com, not necessarily, like, it depends. If it's something like Mission Impossible, let's just go action. That sounds so fun to me. I don't think I'd pull a Tom Cruise and really want to do my own stunts like that. But also,
but you could.
If
anyone could, you could.
I could do there's a lot of physicality that I'm able to do because of gymnastics that I think the average person may not be comfortable doing, that I think could add a lot of spark and fun into action films. But then on the flip side of that, movies like The Spy Who Dumped Me, where it's action, but it's a rom-com, and it's, oh my God, I love that movie. It's one of my favorite, just movies in general. Like, these two knuckleheads, these two best friends getting thrown into a situation that they are not qualified to be in whatsoever. It really just, I love that, and I would love nothing more than to be a part of something like that, of like, I'm not qualified to be here.
Well, listen, I'll call up Tom Cruise, who, you know what, he seems like a guy that doesn't even have a cell phone, so we'll make it work.
He's probably got like a burner phone.
Right. So to wrap up here, Laurie, I'm really truly amazed at how much you've accomplished in just 24 years. I'm going to list it off: gold medalist, Olympic broadcaster, student, actor, activist, author, musician. I've seen you play guitar. But I'm very excited to say that we have two things in common. We are both Geminis and Jersey girls.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm
That's
not
a
very
very
into.
specific pot. That's a very,
I know we must have a lot in common here. I will defend Geminis to my dying breath, even though
Me
I don't
too.
really. I'm not into the astrology that much, but I feel like we deserve to be
like the
defended.
slander. I don't
Right.
like to slander. You know what I mean? Okay, wait. So are you like a May Gemini or a June Gemini?
I'm a June Gem. I'm June 2nd, so we're a little close.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm June 9th. Yeah, that's really cool. Look at us.
But maybe more importantly, as New Jerseyans, it feels like we always have to defend our state. So I'm wondering if you could quick monologue on the meaning of what it is to be a Jersey girl.
I mean, we don't pump our gas, we pump our fists. You know what I mean? Everybody knows New Jersey is like that Jersey Shore and Point Pleasant and Belmar and all of these different things. I know Jersey because of Wawa, and I know Jersey because of the bagels and the pizza, and just the food in general is so wonderful. Central Jersey does exist. I will die on that hill. But also, what's really fun is that most people think of when people think of Jersey, they think of like Newark, which is just. Let's think about something else. Like there's little places to go and hike, and there's little like swimming holes, and there's a lot of beautiful nature in New Jersey as well. But it definitely takes some hunting to find it. So you got to find the wonderful things. But I promise they're in there. They're just not marketed.
They so are. Someone send this to Governor Phil Murphy to use in some sort of marketing campaign. Laurie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I had such a great time.
Same here. Thank you so much.